This is Twit.
Neither Twitter nor Google Plus is the largest social network these days. Turns out that, it's not the fastest growing. The fastest growing is actually Instagram, not Pinterest, as we heard late last year, at least according to research by the Global Web Index published today. The site has grown by about 23% in the last 6 months. And of course, it's not the biggest. The biggest social networks are Facebook, YouTube, Google+, Twitter, and LinkedIn, in that order. And to me, the shocker that jumped out from the survey is that Google's Orkut is in the top 10. It's the number 9 biggest social network. It's even bigger than Yahoo's Tumblr. That shocked me.
Really? Wait, in what place is it growing exactly?
I have
Brazil? Wasn't that where Orkut still thrives?
Yeah, Brazil and India, I think, to a lesser extent. In any event, another stunner is that something like 2/3 of users for social networks use mobile devices now. That's way up from last year's reports. With us today to talk about all this is Jason Mander, who is head of trends at Global Web Index, and he's in fact the author of the study. Jason is Skyping in from London. Thank you for joining us, Jason.
No problem at all.
So is it true? Does Orkut still exist?
It certainly does. We've had quite a lot of people saying, what the heck, we didn't expect Orkut to feature at all. Actually, if you look at it on a country-by-country basis, it is, as you said, Brazil and India that are the reasons. We're finding over 50% of the internet audiences in those two markets are on Orkut, and about 10 to 15% in both of them are actively using the site each month. The rest of the world, it's much lower, so it really is those two markets that are driving things.
One of the things that's interesting about the study, and it's one of the difficulties for analysts like yourself, is that it's hard to differentiate between whether two properties are one social network or two social networks. For example, of course, Facebook owns Instagram, and I'm sure there's enormous crossover between the two. Google owns YouTube, and it also owns Orkut. If you look at YouTube and Orkut, it's clear that Google is integrating YouTube and Google Plus together, whereas they're not apparently integrating Orkut in any way that I'm aware of. So how do you decide when two services are in fact one? At what point does Instagram become actually part of Facebook, or at what point does YouTube become part of Google Plus?
It's a tricky question. When we survey our respondents, we ask them to make very clear decisions about which of the sites they're using. So they'll be presented with a list, and things like Instagram and Facebook will be separate. So it's their perception, really, of what they're using. Even though all of us know that they're sort of merging together, for the users that we're talking about on the streets across the world, they're still separate entities, and I think they will be for some time yet.
Now, you reported an astonishing connection between microblogging and the use of tablets. I think you reported 44% penetration. Is that as unusual or unexpected as it sounds?
Well, we're looking at, when we talk about microblogging, for us, active users who are people who are using them on a monthly basis. We're not necessarily saying that tablet users are on there every day or even multiple times a day doing it, but certainly on a monthly basis, that's the sort of figure that we're looking at the moment.
As Mike mentions, Facebook and Instagram, in many cases, they're sort of blurred lines, as in, are they one company? Are they two different entities? And the cross-posting, if you start at Instagram and cross-post to Facebook, can be a little bit odd, because you've got people who are liking the photo that you liked on Instagram, but it's on your Facebook page. When you see numbers like Facebook is shrinking, 3% isn't a huge drop, but still maybe waning in popularity, how does it change what Facebook has to do in the future if Instagram is really what's on the rise?
I think that taps into quite an important issue. It's very easy to make headlines about Facebook declining, and a lot of other people have, in fact. But Facebook is just integrating so many other things into its domain that actually, even though the headline figures for the site might be down, when you look at its reach across other platforms, it's really still quite phenomenal. And also, we've seen strong growth for the Facebook Messenger app. So while people might be using the main network slightly less frequently, there's still a growing appetite for the type of instant communication that Messenger apps can give.
Jason, I've noticed an interesting divergence between the trend lines for Google and for Facebook. For example, Google seems to be hell-bent on integrating everything inside, all the Google properties into, and if you follow those trend lines, you end up with one Google product called Google Plus that includes search and YouTube and Gmail and so on. And if you look at Facebook, they're actually doing the opposite. They seem to be spinning out different aspects of Facebook into individual apps, and they want you to use them separately. Is this a trend that is real? Do you really see them going in that direction? And who has a better strategy?
I think it's important to note that Google Plus did post growth during the period that this report was looking at. It has added active users in the last 6 months. But it's still some way behind Facebook. And I think there's a general trend of people becoming a little bit tired or a little bit bored of the big established social platforms. Hence why we've seen large growth of things like Instagram and for Vine and for Pinterest to a lesser extent. So I think Facebook's strategy, even though, as I said, it's very easy to make headlines about them declining, is actually working pretty well for them. And actually disassociating things like Instagram from Facebook could work in their favor.
Gotcha. Well, thank you so much for joining us late in the evening in London. You can find,
no problem.
Yeah, thank you. You can find Jason's work at globalwebindex.net.